Hi everyone! Today I'll be sharing some study tips as someone who's graduated from Stanford undergrad and Harvard grad. And honestly I was a bit hesitant to do this video because I don't think I'm the best person to give advice personally, but take what you want. I just wanted to share my study process. So hope this is not too unhelpful. Let's get right into it. Well, the very first point would be go to lecture. I know this sounds really silly and really basic, but I can't stress enough how important it is to actually go to lecture and listen to what the professor has to say in person. I feel like that makes a really big difference. And honestly, a lot of lectures are recorded these days and uploaded onto Canvas or whatever site your school uses. But come on, let's be real. I feel like at least half of you, won't even go back and watch the lectures. At least that was for me when I had like 10 to catch up by the end of the semester. So I think it's always important to be on top of lectures, and in person is best. Some people can watch lectures at 2 times speed later on, and I don't know how they do it honestly, but if it works, fine, it works for you. I just feel like just being in the classroom setting really helps for you to be in the zone and be motivated, and also retain the information if you hear it in person. So at the beginning of every week, I like to make a plan for myself on the subjects that I have to focus on, the assignments that are due, anything I have to review or preview, and that really helps me get on track. I know having a planner or agenda where you physically write in what you want to do doesn't really work for everyone. It didn't really work for me. I was always writing in for the first 2-3 days, and afterwards I just never used it, never opened it. I feel like what did work for me though was having a calendar open on my laptop. It's always on my desktop, and I would just fill in what I would have to do in time blocks on that calendar. I think I briefly showed this in one of my previous videos, but we can take a look again at what my calendar for a week would look like in school. So this is a typical calendar for me. This was during my second year of the master's program at Harvard. These are all classes. And then what I also like to put in here is office hours. So I know for college and grad school, there are office hours by TAs or the professor too, usually 1-hour blocks. And if there is a class that I need extra help on or is really difficult for me to understand, I like to just put in all the office hour slots for the week. Even if I won't end up going to half of them, I think it's really nice to have on your calendar. Just so you can go anytime you want and you know where it is. I put in slots here, check this homework, or check this homework, or do this work, or clean up the homework for this, or stuff like that. So in that way, I like to just block off specific times throughout the day and the week, just so I can, not be distracted by anything else and make sure I'm working on that thing at that time. So I think the next important thing to know when you're studying or trying to study is what kind of learner you are and how you take notes. I guess it comes naturally to some people, but for some others it's through trial and error. I used to type up in a long Word document with bullet points and long sentences, and that's how I used to study. I would call that my study guide, and I would just review that before an exam, and to some extent it worked, but I realized it wasn't really the right fit for me. So this is a core course for the human biology major at Stanford, HumBio 2A. So I have numbered lists, I have bullet points and blah blah blah, and this list is really long, a lot of text, and it just didn't work for me. Even when I was studying for an exam and reviewing these notes, I feel like my eyes just glanced over the words, okay, the white is paper and then the black is text, but I didn't really process what I was reading. And so I tried drawing, and I think that really helped for me for like biology concepts, and I was really bad at biology, like cells and all that stuff you have to memorize. I had taped a bunch of 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper together to make one giant poster, and I would like draw cells and the process of, I don't even know what you call it anymore. And I used to just post it up on my wall in the dorm room, and I would just stare at that, and like it would help me learn better than having to look through bullet pointed lists about that. I had also tried out handwriting notes, and this is what helped me through grad school actually. So sometimes I would use different colored pens to go over my notes and write notes on top of these notes to explain these notes if something is unclear. So that's what I did here. Little handouts, I would review handouts and write more detailed notes or fix things that were wrong. Figuring out what kind of learner you are and trying to find what works for you is really important. It may take time, and that's totally fine. The whole process of learning is trial and error anyways. The next point I wanted to make is to constantly think. Unless you're the type of person that can just flip a switch in your brain to start studying and get in the zone, and then everything just flows naturally to you and you can solve anything. Unless you're that kind of person, you're probably like me, where it takes some time to get in the zone to study and also catch up on where you left off last. I always wondered how I can reduce this time that I feel like was wasted just sitting at a desk waiting for that moment to come and getting up to speed. And so I thought, what if you just never switch off your brain, right? I mean, that sounds really bad, but just constantly thinking about something can save you a lot of time when you're actually trying to study. For example, if you have an essay to write, or you had a problem to solve that you couldn't quite fully figure out, why don't you think about it over meals while you're eating, or think about it in the shower, which is what I did a lot. And so even if you're not actively studying, you're still thinking about it, which makes you productive. What is important about this is when I say constantly think, I don't mean like 24/7. It is really important to set boundaries for yourself so that you're not overworking. You know, everyone needs a break once in a while. Outside of those hours, I would always be thinking about concepts we learned so that like it would be processing in the back of my mind, if that makes sense. This is on a related note too, but if you're stuck on something, like you're stuck doing one single problem for like 30 minutes or more, then go do something else. I think it's really important to know when you've spent too much time on it and when it's time to move on. Don't try to waste too much time on one single thing. The next one is kind of a no-brainer too, but I think it's really important to solve as many problems as you can. For quantitative subjects, I think for non-quantitative subjects, reread, rememorize. In high school, to study for history, like AP US history, AP Euro history, I bought my own copy of the textbook, and I used to cut out chapters at a time that I could just easily carry around with me anywhere. It was easy to look through it on the way to school or anytime I needed to. Back to quant subjects though, again in high school in sophomore year, we were thrown into an AP Physics C class without any prior physics knowledge or experience. So unsurprisingly, I really sucked at it. I had 2 separate tutors just for this one subject, and it was really frustrating. And at that time, our Physics C textbook was like this thick. It was like one of the thickest textbooks I ever had. And out of frustration, I just started solving all the hundreds of problems at the end of each chapter. And I would resolve and resolve. And by the end of it, I ended up getting hundreds on exams, plus some extra credit points here and there too. And I think the experience you get from solving all kinds of questions is really valuable. And not just focusing on the questions you got wrong the first time, but I think looking back at the questions you got right and actually understanding why you got them right is important too. Lastly, this is something that I still struggle with, even with a master's degree, but it's learning through application. I feel like a lot of the times classes and lectures just focus on getting the information out there to you. But once I come out of the class, I realize I don't actually know how to apply any of these concepts in real life. And I don't think rote memorization gets you far at all. Sure, it can get you through your next exam, but once you're out the door after that exam, you forget everything that you just crammed. And I think this is just a result of our educational system, which I really dislike, but that's a whole nother conversation that I won't get into. So I think it's really important to make sure that you know how to apply what you're learning in class. For example, for my epi and biostats classes, what really helped me was to try to think about how I can use the statistical methods, the epi methods, study designs that we've learned in class in real life. If I wanted to look at this specific variable in the context of my study, which of the methods that we learned in class would be the most appropriate method to use? And what methodological challenges are there that I can overcome with certain statistical techniques? So I think putting it in the lens of real life situation or life experiences, anything that helps you link what you learned in class to the real world would definitely help you retain the knowledge a lot better, and also you'd be more prepared to apply it later on in the future too, which is ultimately the goal of education, right? Okay, so I think those were the main points that I wanted to talk about, but before I close, I wanted to just say, try to avoid pulling all-nighters if you can. Honestly, I really hope you don't sacrifice sleep for those extra few hours. You really don't have to. Once you decide that you're going to pull an all-nighter, you end up wasting more time. And what I mean by that is, let's say, oh, I'm going to take an all-nighter today. How your brain translates this is, oh, I actually have the whole night to study then, and I just earned myself a few extra hours to procrastinate. I feel like that's the mindset that you can easily end up in when you decide to pull an all-nighter, and that's really dangerous. I definitely pulled quite a few all-nighters in college, and I don't even know why I had to do that. I think I ended up watching like YouTube or K-dramas for half of it anyway, just to keep myself awake too. That's the other thing. So just go to sleep, get rest. Everything will be fine. So I feel like I was rambling again, like I always do. Everyone's study styles are very different. I think it's really important to just find what works for you and stick with it. So good luck. I hope this can help for the upcoming year and preparing your mindset over the summer for it. Bye!